In the following episode, I sit down with Jenny Calvert. Jenny is a founder, a coach, and a fractional leader. She's also just a rad human. And she joins me with a powerful story about what happens when ambition, validation, and work completely blur together. And we talk about her journey through tech and what pushed her to rethink success and how she's now helping herself and her kids define a life that's built on presence, curiosity, and meaning instead of just this nonstop achievement. It's really a conversation about identity, burnout, and what it really means to live well. Before we get there, this episode is brought to you by Enfold. Enfold offers a world-class process utilizing 5-MeO DMT for those who can feel this gap between who they are today and who they envision themselves to be. So if you know there's more for you in this life and you're ready to step into your full potential, this may be the portal for you. You can go to enfold.org to learn more. Of course, psychedelics are not for everyone, but they have played a huge role in my own personal journey, and I believe that they are part of the solution for some to live a happier and healthier life. Of course, we also cannot forget our day one partners, Dreamfuel. They coach leaders and sales teams at some of the fastest growing tech companies on the planet. Companies like Owner, Clay, Pipedrive, Seismic, the list goes on and on. They've coached me. They've also coached a ton of my friends now. And I've never heard anyone have anything other than an incredible experience with them. So this is not sales training. This is teaching you how to master your nervous system and stay in flow state for long periods of time. And as a listener, you are eligible for a one-to-one coaching session. This is free. There is no catch. I hope that everyone takes them up on it. You can go to dreamfuel.com/wakeupcall to claim yours. That's it. On to my episode with Jenny. Jenny, what's up? Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Scott. Pumped to be here. Felt like a little bit of a journey to get this on the books, but we are here, and I'm so honored and privileged. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you. And first, I just want to thank you for all your support of Wake Up Call and writing. And it's been a pleasure getting to know you a little bit, and excited to really dive into it today. I think we're both thinking about a lot of the same concepts, and I guess I always say this is the softball question, but it's maybe the hardest question. Who is Jenny Calvert?
It's a really great question. A long time ago, I would have given you a really lengthy answer. These days, I will tell you that I'm a forever curious explorer. I've gotten to a point where I don't like labels. I intentionally don't label myself. I am here to experience and exist and explore and have a good time and be good, do good. And that's it. Is that meta enough for you, Scott?
I like it. Yeah. I'm here to have a good time. That sometimes we miss that in when we're analyzing and trying to figure out. It's like you got to enjoy this ride. Do good, be good, have some fun. And so we share some similarities in the fact that we both, grew our career in tech, that typically draws a certain type of person. You're likely, that ambition, that drive. There is sacrifice involved. Startup game is not an easy one. And talk me through a little bit about first your relationship to that environment when you were, working in tech, how that felt, and then, kind of the journey of, I guess, waking up a little bit.
Yeah. I'd say it started actually before tech for me. And I was working in account management in direct advertising. So this is like
Mm,
pre, SEO, like that came about right at the kind of midpoint of my work there. But it was really a leader who every time I did good work celebrated ridiculously. And I think that's important because it was the conditioning to produce, reward, produce more.
mhm,
And I'm not unique to that, but that lends itself really well in a fast changing, chaotic, somewhat ambiguous early stage technology environment.
mhm,
Um, and so that was kind of a formative early career for me was I'm really good at getting stuff done. I'm good at solving problems. I work really, really quickly and I'm rewarded, right? And celebrated for that. So that was the, kind of foundational element of work identity moving forward. I didn't intentionally go into technology. I wasn't someone who was like, oh, tech's where you make money. Kind of
mhm,
stumbled into it. Actually had a lot of fun. The first tech company I worked for, it was a 40-year-old business learning how to become a SaaS company.
mm,
So it's really kind of interesting that I didn't start in tech, right? I end up this is my first stop, 40-year-old, still bootstrapped company that was transitioning to SaaS. So how do we move a services model to SaaS? How do we not, fracture relationships? A lot of fun there. Did not pay well.
mhm.
COVID hit, right? COVID hit. We took a reduction in pay to make sure we didn't have to lay anybody off. And my eyes opened wide when a recruiter reached out and that opportunity to start really just jumping up the ladder was there, and here's the pay and here's what you get to do. And it was like, oh man, someone's going to see me and recognize that I'm really good and I'm really smart. And this company has major upswing. It just been acquired through private equity. And like, this is the moment, right? This is my moment where I get to like make something of myself in tech.
Mhm,
Um, it was great until it wasn't, right?
mm,
I had built this identity of producing great work leads to just validation that I'm worthy, that I could sacrifice every fiber of my being in service of the business. And that's how success is driven, right? We're just sacrificial lambs to the business success in many ways.
mhm,
I believed it. I believed it. I lived it. Um, I'm a wife of 16 years. I have 2 kids. I have lots of things outside of work, but it started to become all encompassing, really everything. How I felt about myself, my worth, my value as an individual was tied up in how that business performed, how my team performed, whether or not we were hitting the milestones we needed for an exit. Right. I started to say, I must not be good at this if I haven't had a successful exit. Look at all these other people out there and it's so easy for them. Why is it not for me? So I'd say it really started to take a toll on just who I am, my relationships with my family, my friends, even my team, killed confidence, did a lot of damage. I did a lot of work I'm proud of. So I like to caveat that
mhm.
like I didn't not enjoy and learn so much, right? I look back and I'm like, how did I even do that? A little bit of wonder and awe, Scott, but the turmoil in the aftermath for what it did to my identity, my nervous system, my consciousness, if you will, it was catastrophic. It's the only word. It's catastrophic.
Mhm,
So our similarities were there was a day I had my resignation letter. I've told people this on my desk for 6 months. And then I kept saying, like, give it a couple more months. Let's see if we can get more traction. Let's see how this, if this changes, then I'll stay. If this goes better, then this will, be worth it. So I did a lot of self-rationalizing through this process. And I'm taking a walk in Chicago with the CEO, and he flips that what keeps you up at night question to me. Usually you ask that of your senior leaders. Hey, what keeps you up at
mm,
night? What can I
mhm,
think about? And I said, I'm realizing I need a lot of external validation, and I'm really afraid I'm going to wake up one day and never have built something of my own. And it just like, bleh, right? Not even conscious thought. And that was the moment where I came home and I hit send.
mm, mm,
That was it. It was as clear as anything has ever been that I wanted to solve that, right? Why do I need so much external validation to feel worthy, to feel valuable? And two was, I want something of my own. That was it.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, there is.
And thank you for sharing. So the first place my head went was this period where, things are going well. You're like now in the engine of tech. And I'm curious because why do you think that initial sacrifice like feels good? It's like it's very masochistic. Like like speaking through my journey, it was like, oh, I will be the one that is willing to be on
Hmm.
Slack at 10 p.m. I'll be that one that you can just see is all in. And it was almost like in the initial stages, the more I gave, the better I felt, and
Hmm.
it's really
Yeah.
bizarre.
Personally, I'm not sure if you experienced it. It almost was like false sense of community,
Hmm.
right? And so
Hmm.
again, it was putting in the like extra mile and starting to see that, take hold and whatever, initiative or milestone we are working towards. And progress feels good. As humans, we require progress, right? We need progress to feel happy. Um, and in that period of my life, I'm not going to say that like everything else wasn't good, but it became like all encompassing consuming. So that's where a lot of my happiness came from, because that's where I was seeing the most progress. My kids were fine. My husband was fine. There wasn't anything wrong, but that's where I was getting that little like dopamine rush of like give, see reward, and or what did we learn? Okay, we can pivot and do something else. And I think that cycle becomes addicting. It's exciting, right? You get to find out. And so I think
Hmm.
early you kind of become consumed and obsessed with it. At least I did, right? And I didn't mind late nights. I didn't mind, sitting. Honestly, I can remember getting on with our engineers at midnight, right? We'd have somebody in ops and engineering, and here I am bringing in the customer, and we were building and solving. And then to see that give benefit to someone else. So, like that intrinsic desire to be helpful, right? It was just delivered through that channel at that time. And of course, some of it feels good, right? And I don't think you consciously realize the way it's chipping away at you, right? I don't know that it's the conscious recognition of I'm investing in something and am I drawing a return yet? That's what I wasn't aware of. So I was depositing, didn't realize that I wasn't necessarily generating a withdrawal.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way of framing it. And I think that that feeling of sort of nothing outwardly looking wrong also keeps us trapped sort of in that waiting stage, where you have the resignation
Mm-hmm.
letter written, but you look around at your life and you're like, well, I have my house and my family, and actually people are saying I'm doing a really good job. So
Really
this,
good job.
yeah, so
Yeah.
this
Everywhere.
feeling,
How do you do it, Jenny? You're a mom and you teach group fitness and you're like, you guys have a boat and you're out having fun all the time. How do you do it? I'm like, I
Mhm,
don't know. That was the
mhm,
real answer. But I'm like, and then I'm celebrated for this chaos that I live in and somewhat thrive in. I use quotes
mhm.
because I was not thriving, but
Yeah.
to
Well,
everybody
that
else,
can
I
become
was.
your identity, right? And that
Oh, yeah.
people kind of give that to you of like, oh,
Oh,
Jenny's the
yeah.
one who just can hold it all together. She's doing all of these things, and then you
Yeah.
you want to sort of
I
live
did,
up to
Scott. I
that.
remember there was a webinar we did at work, and it was women, and it was talking about, right, how do we manage being, mothers and wives and partners or whatever it was while working in tech. And I can remember being at like the head of the table leading this conversation, telling people how to do this well, while I'm literally drowning with a resignation letter on my desk, right? Talk about a fraud.
I
Gross.
mean, I mean, I'm sure
Gross.
it was helpful for some.
My
It's
advice was like outsource your laundry and your cleaning, right? It was like hire people to do the things that you don't have time
yeah,
to do. And then you could put more time into work. It's great.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
sickness. I talk about it. I had it, and what the sickness loves to do, I think, is infect other people. Like we need to all be thinking this way.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be pouring
Mm-hmm.
more and more energy into work. And I
Yeah.
do want to just call out like, oh my goodness, I had such a hard time and I was not a mother and I was, not like I couldn't even imagine. I really can't. I feel like a big
Well,
baby sometimes when I think about that. But um,
just imagine abandoning another relationship that's really important to you.
I did a lot of that. I did a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that.
So you don't
Yeah.
have to be a parent to understand what it felt like and what happened.
Hmm. Hmm. Let's go down that road a little bit. I don't have children yet. It's probably on the horizon at some point, but a lot of our listeners do. Um, and I know you always have been, but now you're thinking about different things with your kids and the world that they're going to grow up in and the example that you want to set. And there's absolutely merit to the hardworking, figure, and that's awesome, but that does not paint a whole picture of what I think most of us would agree it builds a happy,
Mm-hmm.
meaningful life. And I think on
Yeah.
top of that, that might not be the example that we need to set because that's
Yeah.
sort of driven down their throat every time they
Yep.
even flip open their phone.
Yeah.
How do you think about the world that your kids are growing up in, and what are some of the conversations that you've been having with them recently?
They're um they're 11 and 15, so I think that's important just so people know where my kids are in the
Hmm.
growth stage. My daughter is 11, entering middle school. My son is entering sophomore year of high school. So we are thinking what's next, college,
Hmm.
no college, things like that. So we have a lot of conversations. I mentioned before we started recording that him and his buddies talk about being rich all the time. And so
Hmm.
I've really been intentional about asking them to define words that they don't associate any meaning to necessarily, right? There's this just they've learned what it means through video and all the things that they see. There's a million
Hmm.
videos of 21-year-olds with Ferraris out there on the internet.
It's all monthly
It's
income.
like, yeah, yeah,
That's what
exactly. Like,
wealth or riches is. Just like I
yeah.
make 20K, 40K, 400K a month, and that's it.
Stuff too, right?
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
it's
stuff.
all super materialistic in the way that it's showed to them through social media and whatnot. So I do a lot of work to ask my kids to define things when they use words. It's a coaching methodology. It's important, I think, for anyone. We do it all the time. We say a word, it means something up here to us. Can you actually articulate it? When you try to give words to a word, you're like, oh, this is hard. Like,
Hmm.
makes sense up here, but when I have to bring it out here, it doesn't make so much sense anymore. Um, but probably the biggest thing that I do with my children is I don't ask them what they want to be when they grow up, which I got asked all the time, right? Even you go through
Hmm.
school, what are you going to be when you grow up? You have career days or you have certain professions that are highlighted. And the question I ask now is, what experiences do you want to have?
Hmm.
So they think about the things that they want to get to do, not necessarily how they want to perform and earn money. Um, that led my daughter to talk about how she wants to spend more time in the water with animals. And so maybe it's marine biology, maybe it's research, maybe it's, I joke that one day I'm going to make $13 an hour working at the turtle hospital in Marathon, Florida. Like, that's cool.
I love that.
Um, but I, want to ensure that the things that they're thinking about wanting to experience are incorporated into their future design planning, if you will. Um, we're not forcing college from an educational pick a career path. We reinforce that the opportunity for them to go to college is more life learning, right? Getting away from home, learning to be social, building community, um, I actually had the opportunity to do this. I didn't go to college for a specific thing. I went to University of Colorado to snowboard a lot.
Nice.
And to not go to the same school everybody that I went to high school with went to. But anyway, so how we're talking about our expectations is different. This is very personal, like to me and my children. The other thing we are talking about is how AI will transform what they're thinking about for future work right now. And those conversations are happening. And that's wild to me that, 11 and 15-year-olds know how AI is impacting the future workplace. But, what I don't want them to do is get married to this idea of something that won't exist and not consider options and experiences that, I don't want the blinders to go on too early, I guess is what I'm saying. And to be cognizant and conscious of influence. So we talk about that a lot. My son will bring his friends around and he'll look at me and he'll go like, Mom, please don't start. And I'm like, oh, I'm going. They're here. They're mine. They're in my car. They're trapped. Let's go. But I want to make sure that, again, the influence is so big. It's so huge. The noise is so loud, right? Of do this, be that, earn this, look like that. That I worry what it will do for identity early. We got a lot of the identity convolution late, right, through work. What's going to happen to them now? I don't know.
While identity is still forming. Yeah, we're running like the craziest lab experiment that humanity has ever run, and just because we're not physically putting it in our body, we're not injecting something. It doesn't have to go through any level of scrutiny, but we're ingesting it right into our brains. I think we all know it's going to have some pretty dire and negative, consequences. Yeah. And it really hasn't been happening that long. And it somehow has got normalized so quick, this idea of like just technology pervading every avenue of our lives. And I saw this graph recently that kind of just terrified me. And it was talking about the amount of, screen time with teenagers and developing brains. And it is like 3 times as much as the one-on-one time they get with their parent. So we are actually not the primary one that's raising our children anymore. Yep. It is our screens, and that's heavy to understand and really take in.
And not always knowing what's coming through and not knowing what is true, right? I mean, my daughter, who's 11, believes everything that comes through her phone. Why wouldn't she?
Wow.
So we talk about what that's doing from a programming perspective, the ability to think critically about something and question whether what she's receiving through the phone is true or not.
That's wild to hear that, and it reminds
me terrifying.
Of terrifying. It reminds me. This was years ago. My ex-fiance, so I guess we'll call him ex-nephew, and we were watching some very silly Netflix shows like Sharknado or something he wanted to watch, and it's like a ridiculous movie about a shark tornado.
Actually seen it, not proud to say. Kids.
And it was like really bothering him. It was like he was pretty young, so maybe I was being, cool uncle, letting him watch it. And he kept like watching my reaction to what was happening, and it was like kind of bothering him. So I just like paused at one point and I'm like, what's going on, bud? Like what's happening? And he basically long-winded, but I found out that no one had sat him down and told him what CGI was. No one had sat him down and told him what like special effects were. And so he thought that this was the same as like a documentary, that shark tornadoes existed and we were sitting here watching people's like arms getting bitten off by a shark tornado,
It's
and
not
I'm
funny.
having no reaction, right? So
Right.
it was
Yeah.
interesting too that he was mostly observing
How you
me,
responded.
my lack of empathy, which I found fascinating. That
Yeah.
if you don't know that, you're like, whoa, people are pretty evil if they can just consume this with no
Yeah. Yeah.
reaction,
But
you
think
know?
about, I mean, you scroll through YouTube Shorts, like they do not have TikTok. I'm very anti TikTok. They have Snapchat. Don't judge me as a parent. They have Snapchat. That's how these kids communicate, by the way, is like little picture moment. Anyway,
Mhm.
and my daughter will look at YouTube Shorts.
Mhm.
It's how they're learning, and it
Mhm.
is scary. And yes, I'm the parent. Can't you just remove it and eliminate it? I could. I don't. But on the flip side is, my job then is to be extremely present and have those conversations, right? And I'm very conscious of that. Not to say it's perfect, but how many aren't having any of those conversations at all? The other thing that's, I think, really relevant to what you and I think and you write about a lot is there's no patience, right? Because they live in the world of instant gratification. So there's no tolerance to things being slow. There's no tolerance for waiting. There's no, it's like boredom is the most horrendous thing to them.
Mhm.
It's part of why I love when we do spend time in the Keys. We go every summer. Their screen time is almost non-existent because there's so much to do and play and explore, and they're in the water or we're on the boat, and it's not there. Um, they sleep better. They're a lot more fun to be around. So like, I mean, just a week, I can see what it's like when they don't have access to it. So just to think about what this entire generation is going to be like is,
Mhm.
it's honestly the scariest part of being a parent. Not the
Yeah.
world. It's just what they will be like in the world. And then you
Yeah.
compound that over the number of people that are out there, and then the world gets scary, Scott. But
Mhm. Mhm.
um, yeah, it's crazy.
And I think we, it's so easy to like cast blame on the generation, or like, that there's some sort of fault to them, and I have been thinking a lot more about the accountability that we all need to take, because we created this
Mm-hmm.
world. We created these companies. We created this technology. We allowed it to happen.
Yeah.
We embraced it. We all, talk about imitation. Like, we are still on our phones constantly, sometimes for productive
Yeah.
reasons, sometimes for our own distraction reasons. And I think that level of like, as previous generations, like, oh, we kind of screwed up, guys and gals. And we,
Mm-hmm.
when we tell you
Yeah.
to try and use it more safely, it's because we messed up and we didn't put guardrails that we should have.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. I mean, the phone addiction specifically is like, I mentioned to you that I was traveling through the airport. Have you ever really looked up at an airport and realized that like no one's looking anywhere but here?
Dystopian. I have many times, because when I
Like,
was
like
traveling
you'll
through,
actually stop
yeah,
and look and you're like, it's kind of disgusting. But then you catch
hmm
yourself doing it too. And you're like, oh man, it's me too. Right.
yeah,
To your
totally.
point, like we participated in it.
hmm Yeah. I mean, this is a rabbit hole. We could just
We could.
just
We
keep,
could.
but
I
it's
think like
yeah,
I mean, bottom line, the things that worry me the most, right, is
yeah,
the inability to wait, right? The
hmm
instant gratification, the instant dopamine, like flooded with dopamine 24/7. That from a nervous system perspective, which I know you're really into, and so am I, that worries me.
hmm
So yes,
yeah,
the influence, I think they'll end up growing and being able to start to hopefully make decisions as their brain continues to form, and maybe it'll take longer, maybe it won't. But to not be able to slow down to learn that space is productive to learn to wait for things. Like there's a lot of value in waiting, and it might actually turn out better than if you had it immediately. Something I've learned is tremendously important, right? In tech, we're all about speed and efficiency and getting to the, the result or the learning as quickly as possible, but there's beauty in not.
Agree.
So that's some of the stuff that kind of longer term that's relevant to where we first connected through your piece that does transcend down into that generation as well.
Yeah. Yeah. This hyper fixation with money is also I mean, we all have it. Again, it's all learned. It's imitated from what we have. But, I've been talking to more and more young people and trying to do some writing, for them. And I hear almost 100% of the time, at least definitely for young men, when, they're asking for like a real like career discussion. They want to know, what do I do in the future? And I'll ask them what they want. And it is across the board. It is just a number. It's between $5 and $50 million that they want to make, that they feel they need to make. And then they're out. Like they do not want to participate in this system. They don't feel called to solving. Like I'll ask like what like problems like invigorate you? Like what change would you want to see?
It's
And
not
that's
about
like
that.
they're not even hearing that. They're like, no, I need to make X amount of money and then I'm going to do what I want. The most terrifying part is like, okay, well, what it is that you want. Let's say you have $50 million. What do you do? And it's crickets.
Can't
it's
answer
like,
it.
Sometimes it's like, I'm going to ride my ATV a lot, or I'm going to do, I'm like, okay, sweet for like 3 weeks. And then, you're done ATVing. What now? And it's, and
I think a
maybe I
lot about
can't
the,
remember. Yeah.
have you ever listened to the Modern Wisdom with Chris Williamson, the podcast episode with Andrew Wilkinson, founder of Tiny?
Andrew Wilkins is such a great speaker and writer. I don't think I've listened to that one specifically, but he's awesome.
He's probably transcended into other things you've heard, but I listened to that one specifically, and a ridiculously super wealthy dude that's addicted to more. So the other scary thing is not that they can't answer what they want to do, but that the addiction kicks in and they're going to hit the 5, 10, 15, 20, all the way up to 50. But guess what? They're not exiting the system. You don't see that when you're young and don't have it yet, right? But you become addicted to more.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you think
forget.
You can set the goalpost, but you won't actually leave. Like that's like the fire theory. If you follow other people doing fire, right? Where it's, you make all of your money early and then you do the math and figure out what you need to exit the system and go live. I creep on that Reddit all the time. And people who are at those numbers are like, couple more years won't hurt, They're not exiting the system. They're stuck in it.
Yeah. That was part of the reason for stepping away from my world. All of my people that I was supposed to be looking up to were getting older, GPs, a lot of these firms, and they were not slowing down. It was, let's double again, let's double again, let's double again. And it's like what I think a lot about how we begin to build a system that people are not so obsessed with running away from, like fundamentally just work. Work is just us, hopefully, like giving our passion and our energy to something that we care about. And if we find that and do that, why would you ever want to stop doing that thing? Like that is, it's such a beautiful way to share
I
your gift.
agree. I think about this a lot too, but I'm also like, with the influx of greed and all of the social proof of the potential to just make insane amounts of money, is it possible? Because I feel like there was a point in time in the inception of tech where it was founders really like obsessed with problems, deeply understanding problems and wanting to go solve problems, right?
Yeah.
Some of them had early success. And then it's like that flywheel started. Okay, I can do that too. Let me figure out what problem do I care about solving. It wasn't that there was an inherent understanding of a problem necessarily. It was that model works. They got rich. They exited and made, millions of dollars. And now they're off on their yachts. How do I do that too? So that's what I worry about is like until that isn't a viable way to get rich, if you will, can we actually change the system? Because it's driven by a lot of greed and ego.
Yeah. And building things that we just clearly don't need. Maybe, maybe the market is responding. Like you can have product
Maybe.
market fit with something that if you zoom out, you're like, we don't need this thing. This is not moving the needle of humanity forward whatsoever. And like, I think of, like just, it is an incentive. Like you're right. It's fully just an incentive alignment problem. It's kind of
I think so.
the classic show me the incentive, I'll show you the behavior is.
So when it stops being an incentive, is that obviously there's work I think we can do in the interim, right? It's work you're doing through Wake Up Call and things like that, work that I'm doing through my coaching engagements that are small. But until the system stops rewarding, people are going to do it. We're going to be here. And leading a business from that perspective, right, from that high egocentric place is where it trickles down to the talent level, right? And then we continue to see the waterfall of the casualty of the environment.
And then, like, we have so many examples now, though, of people telling us. I mean, I was told it my whole life that success isn't going to bring you happiness. It's a cliche in movies. Like it's everywhere. Yet we somehow cannot comprehend that until it happens to us. And so we go through a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. And, we talked a little bit about that on your great post you did today. It's like, is that necessary? Part of this original idea behind this podcast and the writing was like, I want to help people wake up before their wake up call. I'm losing faith that is possible. And you might not even
kind of my post today, right? Same type of thing. Is it possible?
Yeah.
I love where you're going with this. And what I think is important is that definition of success. Back to defining things, why it's so important. It's actually like there's a plug, my LinkedIn banner is success is personal. Because if we are inheriting definitions of success from other people or social media or things like that, right? That's where we anchor on that $5 to $50 million being the thing that equals success. By my original definition of success, Scott, I've never been successful. Technically, right? I didn't hit the number that I thought. I didn't hit the title. I had the option to, by the way. I just want to caveat. I chose not to. But I didn't technically hit the thing that I used to define as success. But that's not what success means for me anymore. So now I'm extremely successful, and it has nothing to do with a number or what I produce. In fact, I had to disconnect from that entirely to find work that you just mentioned, right? That is meaningful and that I can sit in, day out, and not hyper fixate on the money, because that's counterproductive to doing my best work. If I fixate on the number, I don't do great work. If I trust the impact that I make and lean into the experiences and the connections I get to make with people, the number happens. Am I making sense? It's that weird thing that, like, until you realize it, you don't understand it. So I think it's really important that we define success. Back to my kids, right? Define what that means. And then once you've defined it, like, why is that important to you? really simple questions, but really deep questions. It's the same questions when we left, right? That we had to say, like, who am I? What do I actually want? What brings me energy? What drains me, right? Simple questions that are so deep when you start to really uncover what's underneath. Where did that come
Yeah.
from? Where did I learn that that's what success means?
Mhm.
What about that
So much
person
of it.
is influential to me, right? What is it about that person that I admire?
Mm,
It's always the questions.
yeah. It's it's such a hard thing to realize how much of our identity and stories are just inherited. And it really requires a lot of humility to understand that. It's like, oh, these
Yeah.
thoughts in my head that I deeply thought were true were inherited. And, it's funny
Hmm.
that it's so pervasive in tech because we love to talk about first principles thinking and breaking it
Yeah,
all
we
down.
do.
And we're, we're
Yep.
good at
Actually,
applying that in our businesses,
yeah,
but not in
but not
our,
to self.
not to
Mm-mm.
self. Yeah.
And went through coach training after I left, and this is one of those things that stuck with me that I talk to a lot of people about, and it talks about there's only one capital T truth, like big capital T universal truth, and that is that we exist and we experience. And everything else they say is a little T truth because it can be true in the moment, but not true anymore after a point in time. And I think about that a lot, that everything that has governed the life, the story of, I thrive in chaos. That's how I survived tech. I got hired off of that. I'm sure a lot of other people listening did too, right? Oh, you're batshit crazy and you love chaos and you like to solve problems. You're perfect for SaaS, right? Like, come on in. The water's fine.
Totally.
And that was like the
Totally.
first narrative that I deconstructed when I left is I was like, I don't thrive, I suffer, right?
Mhm.
But I never allowed myself to see the truth from that other angle to be like, it's not true at all. It may be just
Mhm.
true for a point in time, but it's really not a capital T truth. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm. I do. I do. What has your definition to success evolved into? What are sort of the pillars you anchor on now?
It's really what I opened when you asked me who I am.
Mhm.
Um, the ability to explore and experience, to choose how I spend my time. Um, and that's weird things that I didn't give myself permission to do. And I'm very conscious that I did not give myself permission to do them. But, if I wake up and I'm having a low energy day, to have the full capability and autonomy to clear my calendar and go to the beach and sit by the water and read a book and I need a day to recharge. That's success to me. Actually doing nothing and not being ridiculously uncomfortable is
Mhm.
success.
Mhm.
Being really present and intentional with people, that's success. I spent a lot of time being present, but not present. I don't know if you can relate to that, where people are like, you're here, but you're not here. Because my head was always in the work or what needed to happen or where we were going or some problem, right? Physically present, not emotionally or spiritually present. Um, that's success. And it ebbs and flows, and the permission to change, and it's the most beautiful thing, Scott, to
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
be anchored to one specific outcome, but more so focused on success being the inputs, if you will, that generate whatever that outcome is yet to be that I don't know, and I'm excited to find out.
Mhm. Mhm. I love that definition. Yeah, that present but not present really really resonates. I think I spent about a decade in the future and like just
Mhm.
never here,
Mhm.
just like
Never here.
always thinking about the next thing.
I think that's
And
the other thing, though. Not to, we can keep going. I know you and I could go for like 5 hours, by the way, so we're
Mhm.
gonna have to stop at some point. But
Mhm.
um, the ability to be present and process emotion is something that I worry about, both our generations and younger. Right, as
Mhm.
we've almost created so much efficiency that emotions are inconvenient. You know,
Mhm.
So we can't sit in it and we can't be present with it and get curious about it or acknowledge that it exists and that it's okay. So I didn't mean to go all the way back to my children, but encouraging them to feel and to sit in those feelings and to process through and understand those feelings and to
Mm-hmm.
separate the feeling from the identity. That's the other thing, right? So I ask my daughter, I say, "Are you feeling anxious?" And she'll be like, "Yeah, I'm anxious." And I'm like, "Are you feeling anxious?" And she'll say, "Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
feeling a little bit anxious," because I want her to say that's a feeling, not a part of who she is, you know?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Back to some of our identity stuff is not being able to sit and feel and understand that that is the entire spectrum of being human, right? It's an important part of being human.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. I mean, I'm hopeful for humanity and I try and keep that hope. I think the hope is super, super important. And there's like a growing amount of apathy that I think is very dangerous. And but when I do look at some trend lines, like if we don't course correct, I think your call out there of like if humanity's downfall is not going to be, the robots, taking over, it will be
Mm-mm.
that humans exist in a very not human
Mm-hmm.
space, and energy and things like awe, things like wonder, things like feelings, beauty, love, like
Yeah.
those are very hard to measure. They're hard to quantify. And so they don't really get rewarded. And, you know, I've done a deep amount of thinking somewhat abstractly of like, okay, what moves society forward? Like why is this all happening? And in the absence of conscious decision making from the individual or group of like, hey, here's where we want to go, we moved from like uh, religions and monarchies making those conscious decisions to now it's markets. So, and technology
Mm-hmm.
drives the markets. And what markets reward is growth, efficiency, and the generation of capital. So,
Mm-hmm.
in the absence of conscious decision making,
Yep.
that is what gets rewarded, and whatever behavior gets rewarded gets repeated. So, it makes complete sense that this next generation wants growth. They want to be efficiency. You said, patience. They want
Yep.
speed and they want to
Yep.
generate a lot of capital. That is what the world
Mm.
rewards at the moment. And
Yeah.
I'll pause there and see if that makes any sense because I'm getting like
Absolutely
kind of
does.
abstract. Yeah.
No. No, it does. It does. And so
Yeah.
I think, okay, what are the practices? And I'll keep going back to the piece that I literally, Scott, I share your piece at least once or twice a day still, right? I'll have somebody
Thank
comes
you.
in and I'm like, read this and then we'll chat, read this and then we'll chat. Um,
I'm actually not talking to you until you read this piece.
yeah, this is how I qualify you as a potential lead to talk to me.
Yeah.
Gross. I would never, by the way, if you're listening, that is not true, but you should read the piece if you haven't. The the practices of slowing down, and I think
Uh-huh.
there are some that are trendy. You see like cold plunging is trendy, but in a lot of the construct of that was for like the 995 and the we're
Uh-huh.
the hustle culture and this is going to help you perform better. And I think when we shift towards, if we want to continue to maintain high performance, these things are non-negotiable, because then you tie on that like intrinsic desire for what you just talked about, right? For the growth, for the speed, the efficiency, and all of that, right? To do that, you have to do this. And I think that's where the secondary benefits, which I think you and I would argue are the primary benefits, but for those people, these will be secondary benefits, are the
Uh-huh.
consciousness, right? Are the moments
Mhm.
of joy and wonder that come through meditation, through yoga, through silence, through stillness. You see what I'm saying? So I think
Mhm.
honestly, like
Mhm.
positioning those practices in service of what the market's driving,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
trusting that what you and I have experienced through our own adventures will come.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
have a lot of hope in that. Am I making sense when I say that? Like, they won't
Yeah.
realize that's what they're going to get, but that's what they're going to get. And that's what we need is more of that conscious decision making, right? Some more intentional decision making, things like that. That is a little
Yeah.
bit of my worry is like, will we lose our ability to think critically when we have AI, right? Where I don't actually have to
We will.
learn anything, right? I can go and AI can just do it for me. Like, cool.
It's happening already, and it's been like 2
Yeah.
years. There's a study
Yeah.
that came out already, and it's dropping
Yeah.
IQ, and
Yeah.
this is, I think of the 300,000 some odd years of human evolution that uh, has been going on to form our brains, and we're unwinding that in a matter of 2 years is mind blowing. So you play that out over even like 3 generations, and we're a completely different species, with
Yeah.
that no longer has optionality to have something like Neuralink implanted. We can't, it is to get back to what was once a normal state,
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a lot of these technologies they just get us, they create a problem and then they fix it,
Mhm.
it's like
Not the
things that
podcast to
humans
talk about
used to
how
do.
pharma does that too. No, wrong
Yeah,
podcast
yeah.
today. Okay, next time.
I mean, yeah,
But it's similar,
and
right?
again,
It's a
yeah,
create
yeah,
the problem, create the cure, right?
yes.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, I also really push back heavily against, like, there is no global conspiracy. Like that whole, it's a lazy argument in my opinion. And it also gives up your agency that
Yeah.
there's some like elite group that is trying to make this world a worse place and control you and make all the money. It's like, these are individual people making selfish decisions that many of us make that are in their self-interest, that are short-term thinking, that
Hmm.
always put growth, efficiency, and the generation of capital before
Yeah.
everything, because that is their mandate when you build a corporation that is
But I will
beholden to
also
shareholders.
agree, and on the topic of this podcast, but I will also remind everybody that you have choice in whether or not you play there,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Totally.
So,
Yeah.
like, yes, we exist in this civilization and society, but no one is mandating you to play by that set of rules. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you can choose to
Yeah.
go be an artist and create art,
Hmm.
and you may not generate millions and millions of dollars, but if you do something you love and you put good into the world and it makes you happy, you're allowed to do that. No one says you
Yeah.
can't,
Yeah.
right?
You can also make millions and millions of dollars. There are
You
so
could.
many ways to do it, right?
Yep.
It's like,
Yeah.
I think that's where the conscious decision comes. Like
Yeah.
so the default setting that markets will always default, the growth efficient generate capital. You can consciously decide that the institutions that you're part of, whether that's a company you build, a company is an institution, a school that your kids go to, any religion you practice, anything, and you can set up your institution in your little
Mm-hmm.
community in a
Mm-hmm.
way that does not serve
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
those. It's not that
Yeah.
growth is bad. It's not that efficiency is bad. It's not that generating capital is bad.
Yeah.
They just don't have to be our top 1, 2, and 3 initiatives. You can
Exactly. Yeah.
absolutely make an absorbent amount of money if you'd like, in a
Sure.
long-term way where you're
Mhm.
solving, meaningful problems for you. You know,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's,
Yeah. That's where, I mean, it was a little bit of my like counter argument to the whole victim of this greater, global conspiracy to force us into this system, because you still have optionality to not.
mhm, totally. Yeah.
I don't play
And
into a lot of
it
those narratives
requires,
anymore, Scott. Like
no,
I'm like
no.
I said, I explore, I experience, I say yes to things that are interesting. I say no to things that don't seem or feel right. And I
Mhm,
completely have that agency and choice, and so does everybody else. It might be
mhm,
scary, sure,
mhm, mhm.
but it's always worth it to find out.
Yeah. It's always worth it. And yeah, it requires definitely a level of surrender, a level of trust, a level of faith. Like I imagine,
Mm-hmm.
so we're, not painting this overly pretty picture. Like I imagine there are days when you're absolutely terrified and the institutions that will kind of welcome you back with open arms and
Oh
like,
yeah.
come on,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
water's
Yeah.
warm, are there and they're enticing. Talk me through sort of how you combat fear and just find that faith that doing the meaningful work that you have defined for yourself is worth it when you're in those periods of doubt.
I think there's a lot of evidence that I go to of how things have worked out. And I know that's like the most cliche answer, but like fear, the number one way for me to conquer it is to look for the evidence that it's true. So I go back to that truth a lot, right? And it is, especially if I'm worried about a future outcome and I'm like, okay, what evidence do I have that this is going to happen? And it's usually none or very little, or it's very, like very loose evidence. And then I say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, what evidence do I have that when I've been in situations like in the past that everything has worked out? And I can find lots of
Mm-hmm.
evidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just focusing on the different proof points. And sometimes it's just letting myself sit and be scared for a day. So it's also not forcing through something until I've had some time to evaluate from a place of conscious evaluation, if you will, right? Um, and then I continue to ask those questions. What am I really afraid of? Being seen, being judged. It's the same things we're all afraid of at the end of the day. Failure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what does failure mean? Right? What's the worst that can happen? What's the best that can happen? The typical questions. But I've really
Mm-hmm.
started to walk myself through that process. Um, I have a lot of evidence that when I've done things, especially been afraid, but did something, they've always led to outcomes that I didn't anticipate, but were a lot better than what I was expecting. Right. So that's more of that
Mm-hmm.
evidence that I continue to find. And the more I think we do things, we learned that in tech, by the way, a lot. Like when we experimented with something, we're like, oh, the thing we thought was going to happen didn't happen, but these other two things did. So, like, what if we, you know what I mean? So it's just applying the
Mm-hmm.
same thing now. A ridiculous amount of trust and surrender, though. You said it. Days where I feel fearful or anxious, I'll go to yoga and I'll take that hour
Mm-hmm.
on the mat. I'll dedicate my practice to just self, just to being here and being present, closing off all of the noise. And I usually walk out of there with a pretty good idea of what's next. It's funny how
Mm-hmm.
that happens.
It is.
Yeah.
I've fully made that shift in my head just because I have still old patterns that like want to be productive but now my time on the mat, my time meditating, like I know that
Yeah.
is genuinely far and away the most productive thing I can do.
Yeah.
If I'm like
So most
spinning
productive.
my wheels,
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
my thing is I have like a 10-minute like movement that I
Mm-hmm.
do. I just like shake around, jump around, do some light exercises. If that doesn't work, I've got like a little easel set up or just like doing some like abstract art,
Mm-hmm.
not performative, not showing anyone, just like doing it. And those will like bring me back. And if those don't bring me back for whatever reason, just like going and getting still for an hour, like there's
Yeah.
nothing better. And then you get back
Mm-mm.
to it and all of a sudden all the things you're worried about were like so easy and actually
Yeah.
somewhat enjoyable
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
Mm,
Um,
It's crazy.
they always say I'm gonna mess it up, but like that you can't solve a problem with the same thinking that created it. You've heard that
Hmm.
before? So it's
Yeah.
kind of that same concept, right? When we're stuck in a fear loop or something like that, you have to shift, the frequency you're operating from. And the best way to
Hmm.
do that, I love yours. I picked up watercoloring. I put something on LinkedIn the other day about how
Nice.
bad I am at it, and I love that I'm bad at it because I can only get better. And
Yeah.
it's been really fun. And it's like to do something that I'm bad at and brand new at, and like, but doesn't need to be good because it's not for anybody but me. It's just a really fun thing to do. Um, Walking meditation for me. So I
Mm.
have a beautiful nature trail. It has been like my sanctuary. It's 3 miles. It's the perfect like 45-minute walk, you know?
Hmm.
Um,
Love that.
no noise or music, just so I can hear the trees and the birds and start to really just bring that presence back internal. Just giving
Nice.
some more ideas if the audience is curious on ways that they can do it. But I always just say, if you're stuck, go for a walk. 10-minute movement, shake, move, right? Any movement, shift the energy. You can shift the
Hmm.
thinking, shift the outcome.
Yeah. I haven't been doing my walks this week, and I think that's probably why
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like fully there. I usually am really
Not
good
funny.
at getting
You
out.
create more
Yeah.
awareness of that. When I start to feel a little
Hmm.
more anxious, I'm like, oh, it's my diet or my movement. Like I've gotten
Hmm.
to where I'm really, really good at knowing exactly which part of my kind of more standard operating process these days I'm neglecting.
Hmm.
There's always clues
Yeah.
and signs, and I think that's I had no conscious awareness of that when we were in the thralls of really just exhaustion and burnout in tech. I didn't know any of that.
Uh,
None.
Me neither.
I just spiraled.
Zero. I was taking so many supplements and
Yeah,
coffee and all
right?
this. Who
Yeah,
knew what was having
that
any
too.
effect? I
That
was
too.
just out of
Yep.
my mind.
Drinking, partying, finding
Yeah.
any way to suppress it instead of understanding that we were just, by the way, contributing to feed the engine of
Yes.
doom and anxiety. But we're
Yes. Yeah.
humans. We're
We're
complicated,
humans. We are. We
but we're
are. The last
beautiful.
thing I'll say on the fear is, I think there were so many great examples of how to help combat that, and one of the things too that I'll sort of challenge folks is on the other end, you can also play around with your expectations, and what I mean
Mm-hmm.
by that is we think we need a lot more than we do to actually feel okay. And, I was able to test this out in India, but it's like you can put yourself in environments, whether it's just going out into nature with very little, or going to a Vipassana retreat where you just get a little wooden bed, or I was in, really, I don't know, rough in environments. And
Yeah.
within 36 hours, your brain completely adapts. You're going to come in, you're going to judge it, be like, oh, this bed is so uncomfortable. There's no AC and it's only like 8 feet by 8 feet. Like, this is crazy. And then your brain just says, well, I have shelter, I have food, and hopefully, if you're lucky, you have companionship. You're with a friend or someone you love. And those three things are really all we need. And
And
when
amazing.
we can give up attachment of all these things that we believe we need in life, which is totally okay to have nice things. I like nice things. Everyone should have nice things, but you you don't need any of them.
Mm-mm.
And I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we attach our safety to objects and just trying to play
Yeah.
around with
All the
that
time.
as well.
All the time. All the time. You made me think of my cousin is a recovering addict. He just celebrated 11 years sober, which is awesome. But when he went through treatment, the final thing they do is they go into the wilderness in Montana for a couple of days to prove that they are all they need to survive.
Hmm.
And I think that's something as we close out that we can all kind of take away and learn from, right?
Hmm.
Is that getting deeply human and really comfortable and curious about ourselves and those operating systems, those truths, the different intakes and things like that. That you'll never regret spending the time to dig deeper and get to know yourself. So, Scott, loved the conversation today. Thank you so, so much for having me. I have a feeling it will not be the last that we have together, but thank you again for having me on.
Thank you, Jenny. That was a great way to wrap up. And to all our listeners, thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you next week.